tarot cards are often the first step and basis for a seeker of metaphysical knowledge, like you, to discover your forever path. That could be astrology, numerology, healing arts, or any other spiritual interest you discover along the way. Elaine Ireland is not only a teacher of tarot, she is a mentor who supports you and will be there for you. Visit www.elaineIrelandtarotmaster.com now and discover how Elaine's mentoring, tarot card and psychic readings, tarot card classes, and more help you to grow into the true being you are meant to be. Welcome to Conversations with the Ancients, where you're about to discover a whole different world than the one that, up until now, you've believed you're familiar with. World-renowned metaphysicist, practicing psychic and tarot teacher Elaine Ireland invites you on a journey where you'll hear voices from the past, interviews with some of the greatest metaphysicians you've never heard of, because in their time, they needed to move with stealth. You'll also meet today's spirit mediums, healers, and others who will show you a side of the paranormal you've never seen before. Be sure you visit our website at conversationswiththeancients.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, hear the words of metaphysicians who blazed the trail. You're not in jail, thanks to them.
Hi, Kathy, thehippiemom.com.
Yeah, hi, Elaine.
How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, I am too. I'm sure you heard that in my phone a while ago. I haven't had any coffee today, and I feel like I've had a pot. Just, ooh, here we go.
Here we go.
Calm down. Try to calm down. Full disclosure here, folks. This is Elaine. Full disclosure, Kathy joined a tarot class of mine quite a while ago. And I know that, in fact, I tell my classes, even if you don't go on to use tarot, you will learn a lot about yourself, and you will learn about focusing, and you'll learn psychic abilities, and plus the fun of the beauty of the antiquity of what the tarot has to offer. She was a very good student. She knew more than she thought she did when she walked in, but she's taken a different avenue, and that's what I'm so excited about. And she's a newbie to this world, but to this venue, but she's not a newbie to psychic ability. And that's what I'm so excited about. It's because she's found what she loves. Tell the public what you love.
So this is really full circle for us, Elaine, because the reason I'm sitting here in this chair is not because I took your tarot class. Well, that's part of the reason, but the real reason is in 2020, during the pandemic, as most of us transitioned to working from home if we worked in an office for a while. And so I didn't have a commute every day. And so I was using that time to really kind of explore and trying to see what other metaphysical classes I might take. And you had been kind of on my radar for years. I never got to one of your fairs to get a reading or anything, but your name just popped in my head again. And I thought, I'm going to see if she's still, she's retired or if she's still practicing, and just see what. So I was definitely called to you. I reached out to you by email, and I didn't hear back for a couple weeks. And then finally I heard, and I was about to just say, oh, well, okay, it's fine. Maybe she's retired and she's living her happy life, just, enjoying life. And then I got an email back from you, and you said, my email and my website have been hacked. I'm so sorry. Here's my number. Call me. And I called you.
That was a mess. Yes.
And so during that phone call, our first phone call together, you said you are an Akashic Records reader. You've been an Akashic Records reader. Yes, you told me that. Okay. And I said, what is that? And you said, as the beautiful teacher that you are, you said, go look it up. Find the oldest book that you can find on the subject that hasn't been, revised multiple times and edited and all of that. And so I did. I went and I looked, and then I dove into the Akashic Records. So yeah, that's what I'm really excited and passionate about, in addition to other things that I'm, continuing to learn. But so I looked up the Akashic Records. I just kind of just consumed as much information about it as I could. And at the same time, I was very not confident at all in my abilities. So I didn't really believe that I could do it. I was really struggling with that, finding my voice. That's been a huge struggle for me in this life and in past lives, I think, is just finding my voice and feeling confident to share my knowledge. And so I felt called to join your tarot class, where I met some other incredible people who I'm still friends with today. And really, I think for me, the tarot class, I knew that I probably wasn't going to be like a practitioner of tarot, because I just felt like it was going to open up, like you said, it was going to just open me up to many other things. So by saying yes to that, it really started me on my path and helped me to start build more confidence in becoming an Akashic Records reader, not only for myself, but for other people, which is what I do now.
Akashic Records have always fascinated me because in this lifetime, I have an English degree and taught school. And to me, the Akashic Records are just an infinite library. So that appeals to the teacher and the learner in me, and anybody that has the ability. And public, not everybody is allowed to be an Akashic record reader. That is a very unique tool. It's a very unique gift, because they can enter, or call them portals, call them files. They're trusted in a way that other practitioners don't need to be trusted. We all have our methodologies, but the Akashic Records are giant secret boxes. They're treasure boxes of, and correct me if I'm wrong, past lives as well as future lives. And people hear future lives. Well, yes, you have to tune into the idea of more than one life. You have one body, and every time I hear it, like in an advertisement or something, you only get one life. So buy this product. I'm going, what? Bad. But that's my belief system. We come back, we learn our lessons, we teach lessons, we share lessons. And then when we're done and we've touched everybody we're supposed to touch this lifetime, learn the lessons, then we go on and there's a review, and then we get to come back whenever we get permission to come back. But not everybody gets to read all the fine print like an Akashic record reader does. So to me, I'm always in awe of what Akashic record readers can do and the information and why you get it. That's a big, I'm in awe of you guys because I can't do it. I've been doing this work for a long time. But every time I've even made an effort, these big doors just shut. Like, nope, you don't have the password, kid. So why Akashic Records, do you think? Why the interest there? I think you were pushed that way, but consciously on this level, in this body, why do you think?
In this body? Oh gosh. I've always felt a draw or a calling to write. Like, I loved as a kid to write stories and different things like that. And then, as an adult, I thought, well, maybe I'll be a writer. That's a really hard, that's a hard job. But so maybe that's part of it. I have had several, people tell me, several different people not associated with each other tell me, in addition to you, that I've done this before. I've been a record keeper. I've been a scribe. I've, worked in some of the old libraries, keeping the books and the documents safe and things like that. So I feel in this life, it's really been It's been really actually a difficult journey because I'm very logical. That's just how my brain works. And so this is definitely not something that's logical, right?
That's true.
Which was hard for me as I was learning to read, to open my own records. And I just want to just my point of view, from something that you said earlier, is anyone can open their own Akashic records, but it takes intention and it takes practice. So it's something that you definitely have to be dedicated to, working at, which in the beginning I wasn't very dedicated and I couldn't understand why am I not able to tap into the information I'm trying to access for myself. And what really was shown to me was I just wasn't being dedicated to it. And so I sat down and I decided that I was going to every day open my records for at least 15 minutes. And even if nothing came through, I was going to just write. So I really started out by journaling. I would write out the question I wanted to find out, open my records, ask the question, and just start writing whatever kind of I was feeling. And at first, when it first started out, I would get one or two words, at a time. It was very almost like poetic, I want to say, which was strange for me because I was used to, writing in sentences. And then it kind of switched over. The more I practiced, the more it switched over. And then I started getting sentences. And the funny thing I noticed was when I was done, I would close the records, I would put away my journal, and then I'd come back later and I'd read it. And I wouldn't remember writing that because I was channeling it
Right.
from the Akashic Records. So that was kind of like my first clue of, oh, hey, something's going on here. The other thing I noticed was the more I got into the flow and the more I started writing incomplete sentences and getting the information, sometimes I would get words that I didn't necessarily know what they meant. But I would write it down anyway. And then I would go later and I would, Google it and look up the word. And it was used perfectly in the sentence. And I would have spelled it, most of the time I would have spelled it correctly, but it's just not a word that I ever used. So I was like, okay, so this is different. This is, definitely not coming from me. And then I got more comfortable in my own, opening my own records. I got more comfortable with how that felt. And then I decided, I might want to try and do this for other people and see how that works. And that was a complete shift for me. I almost had to relearn how to do it because it really felt a lot different, to me. And I wasn't sure, opening my own records, I was like, oh, okay, if the information's not 100% or if I didn't believe it was 100%, which it always was, but it's okay. But if I'm reading for someone else, it better be correct, right? And so when you reopen someone else's records, you really have to be almost kind of like a reporter. You can't allow your own transcription of what you're getting to get in the way. So you're really just reporting what you see. And so that was in the beginning for me, it was a little, I don't want to say difficult, but it was definitely something that I had to move through and work through, is that just report what I see. Oh, I see a red balloon and it's tied to a bike and I don't understand, and just tell them that. And then if it resonates with them, sometimes it would, sometimes it wouldn't. But I feel like everything's, comes through for a purpose. And so that was one of the things that I really had to kind of step out of my own way and just be the reporter and allow the information to come through. And I was still using the same process of writing down the question and just kind of channeling the answer or writing it. And the other thing was my confidence of, is this me? Is this Kathy saying this to this person? Or is it really coming from their Akashic Records? And so I asked for a sign from my guides, to give me a sign that I would know when, that for sure it was definitely information. And they gave it to me. And so that's what when I feel that, which it's kind of like chill bumps, I guess, or goosebumps you call it, just kind of runs up my body. And when I get that, then I know, like, okay, this is definitely information for them. And sometimes it like really washes over me and I'm like, okay, this is really important. So then I'll say to them, this is really important. They're making me understand this is really important for you to know. So that was helpful.
What
So
is the difference, do you think, between, say, me as a psychic giving a reading to someone who asked me a question, am I going to win my lawsuit? And I get yes or no. And you get the same answer. What's the difference between you going to the Akashic Record and me getting that? Am I getting it from the Akashic Record in an independent way? I certainly wouldn't claim to. But what's the difference between a psychic, a medium, and you getting it from the Akashic Records?
I
How
think
are
it's
they different?
possible. I think it's possible to access the Akashic Records in different ways. Because I've had people tell me, oh, I've been doing this my whole life in my dreams. Like I've been accessing my Akashic Records in my dreams. Or, I feel like for me, the more I continue to get into this and the more I continue to develop my skills, is that it sometimes it just automatically opens for me. Like I don't have to, if I'm somewhere and I just ask a question in my head and I'm not even thinking about it, then I start getting an answer without actually formally opening, setting the intention. And because it's all about frequency and vibration and intention. So when I open for other people, I have a little process that I use that I go, just go quiet, set the intention. Usually have a crystal, actually I have it right here. I'll show you. I have my selenite,
Oh, yeah.
that I use just to, keep the field clear in that. And so sometimes it just happens automatically for me. And then a lot of times, I will start receiving information. Like say if I was to do a reading for you and it was tomorrow, the night before, I might even start getting little pings on things, what might be coming through. And a lot of times I usually say, okay, I'm not like, I'm doing her reading tomorrow. Remind me about this in the morning, but it's bedtime. I'm going to bed.
Which I want
So
you to do. I purposely have not asked you to do this until after we do this. I know that sounds odd, but there's so much going on for me right now that I do want to have a different kind of focus, but I don't want it to get in the way of what's happening now. Which brings me to a question I jotted down. Is the Akashic Record information concrete, or does it change because we know we have free will? I tell people we have destiny stops in our life that you agreed to have before we ever came here. And you will break your leg at the age of 24, but how hard are you going to make it on yourself? If it's in the contract that you're going to lose the leg because of infection, okay, you can't change it. But if it's just the breaking that's important as an experience, do you break it out in the field with a horse and it lands on you and you stay there for 3 days? Or do you step off the curb and you just fall and you break your leg? How hard do you make it on yourself? Is that something that the Akashic Records will tell you? Or does it leave that, ooh, we don't know, but we know you broke your leg?
I think you definitely, when you said we all have free will, because the future exists in infinite possibilities, and I'm getting chills just running up my body right now. So,
Oh,
um,
say that again for the public. Say that again.
the future exists in infinite possibilities. So, because I've got a lot of chills right now going on. Because we all have free will, we are allowed to make those choices. That's part of, our what we get to do here on earth is we get to choose our life and we get to choose how it goes. And so you could access your Akashic Records for, like say, oh, in 6 months, I want to find out what's going to happen with this. Should I move here or should I move there? And, sometimes other people, I've gotten some kind of like vague answers, like, yeah, you could do that. It wouldn't hurt. It'd be okay.
What if they ask you, does the Akashic Records show me living in question mark city? That's another way of saying, am I going to move here or there? But does the Akashic Records say, I do indeed live in LA for 5 years?
So generally we try to not ask yes or no questions because that really doesn't give you a lot of depth to the answer that you get. It doesn't really expand on it. So I always, if someone has a yes or no question like that, I would reword it to like, what are the advantages of me living in this city for X number of years, and just see what comes through from that. And then sometimes, if not a lot is coming through, then I would just reword it a different way until we can kind of get an answer that the person is looking for. But I think a lot of times we are supposed to make those choices for ourselves. And so we might just get little nuggets of information. Like, I feel like all of us really kind of know inside, we just don't trust the answer. So like if I was thinking about moving to a certain place, but I wasn't sure, and all of that, and then I might go and open my Akashic Records and just ask something, and I might get a word or a phrase or an image or something that helps me make that decision that I already knew that I should be doing, right? So
or not doing.
Yeah, or not doing. Yeah, I think sometimes it just provides confirmation, and really it allows us to rely on ourselves and our own inner knowledge and feelings and our intuition. Definitely, my intuition has definitely been expanded exponentially throughout this whole journey that I've had with the Akashic Records and other modalities that I'm learning. So
we'll get back to those modalities in a second. I'm going to beat this dog a little bit. So the Akashic Records will give you a concrete, yes, this is going to happen to you. Yes, you are going to break that leg. Yes, you are going to move. But it doesn't necessarily tell you how or why, but it gives you opportunities to make decisions. But the outcome is going to be you're moving to LA. Whether you realize it or not, you can worry about it, say no, say yes, but the Akashic Record says that's one of your destiny stops. You will do it. It's how you do it that gets you there. And maybe you have to go to San Diego before you go to LA, but you're going to end up in LA. No, I'm not planning on doing any of that. But no, I'm just throwing towns out there. I don't think you could pay me enough to live in California right now, or ever, actually. I always looked at California as a vacation space. I don't even know that I'd do that now. Bless their little hearts. That's a Southern term. Well, bless your heart, sarcastic term. But the Akashic Records, you say, tell me my future. What's my next life? Will it tell you your next life? You're going to be reborn in 3002, 3002, 2078. Will it give you that kind of information?
So what I found,
you will do da 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 da.
What I found in just my practice of opening the Akashic Records for myself and for other people is everyone wants to know about past lives, right? I mean, that was one of my first questions for myself is, tell me about my past lives. And the answer I got, which kind of irritated me, was like, no, you don't need to know that. That's just going to distract you from what you really need to be doing right now. So I didn't get that information for a long time. So what I found is that if it is relevant for you in this lifetime, you will get information about your past lives. So sometimes, people will say, I did a reading for someone once, and they said, I want to find out about my past life. And I really wasn't getting anything, except I was seeing a kind of like an old prop airplane and someone in like a leather bomber jacket, one of the old kind of ones like that. And so when I mentioned that, he said, "Oh, I've always been interested in those planes." And then, we just kind of put two and two together that maybe he was, in a past life, maybe he was in the war and he, flew planes, or something like that. So, but he didn't get any concrete information because it really wasn't relevant to his life right now and what he needed to know. But you will get information about past lives if you ask, and it's relevant to what you need to know about right now. Because really, the Akashic Records, so inside your Akashic Records, you have masters, teachers, and loved ones. And so the masters, teachers, and loved ones kind of all come together and give you the information that you need to guide you right now in what you're doing. So typically, I don't see a lot of past life information come through in the Akashic Records, which is kind of why I started learning another modality where I can dive into past lives. And we can talk about that later, but you will get some information if it's relevant.
We connected. Actually, I feel like we reconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that way about some people that come in as students. I don't like that word because I always feel like I'm not teaching them anything. I'm just helping them remember what they already know. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
there is a first time for everything. And there are those folks that come in with an unopened deck of cards and they don't know why they've got them. But sometimes it's getting to know them again. I mean, they literally open the cards in class. And other times it's, I put these away for a long time, but now's the time kind of thing. Okay, me as a teacher, if you were to go into, I use that word loosely, as we go into the Akashic Records, if I were to ask or you were to ask, have the two of us worked together in past lives? Were we sisters in past lives? Were we teacher student? Were the positions returned, exchanged? Did we live in the same village? Who were we together before? Because I feel that way about probably half of the people that have entered classes. We've reconnected. Maybe we were healers. Maybe we were in the little old ladies or men that lived in the forest and everybody was afraid of, but everybody came to for their potions, that kind of thing. So would we get that if you opened your records or mine and said, "Oh yeah, here's Elaine. Y'all were back. We were together in the 1600s, the 1500s, whatever," and would tell us how and why. Would that be considered a prevalent question to this lifetime?
Yeah, I think so because I definitely think that that's something we could get some kind of an answer for, because it is relevant somewhat in this life, right? Because we're working together. We're part of our soul family, right? We're soul family where you
Sisters, yeah.
you bring that family that it comes back together eventually. You meet those people, and I definitely have met a lot of those people, and it's just something that well, for me personally, it's just something that I know. I just have a feeling like, oh gosh, I feel like I've known Elaine forever, even though I just met her. So I think that's something we could ask and see what kind of an answer that we get. And if it's relevant, then it would come through. I think doing a kind of like a past life regression would bring through a lot more information on a particular past life, or see what's relevant. But again, even a past life regression, which is a totally separate modality, from an Akashic Records reading, that will show you information that's relevant for you to know in this life. Like, you're shown things for a certain reason. You just don't randomly get to watch the movie of your whole entire soul's history. And even though that sounds really cool,
we should try that.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? We absolutely can, and that would be something we could do a follow up. I'd be more than happy to. I've been studying QHHT, which is Dolores Cannon's method, quantum healing hypnosis. So We could definitely do that. I would definitely love to do that for you and see what you get.
My head was just going into 10 different things. And Dolores Cannon keeps popping up on Facebook for me.
Mm.
And it's just been in the last 2 weeks. I had never seen her name. I had never seen her face until about 2 weeks ago. And now almost every time I get on Facebook, boom, boom, boom. And I put her in my reel thing because I've listened to several of her talks and they're a little bit longer than what I want to stay on Facebook. So I'm saving the reels. And then when I have time to sit down and really pay attention, I'll go in and find her things and listen to them, watch them in order. What I was thinking about the Akashic Records, and before I ask you these 2-part question, I realize that there is some information that is not supposed to be shared because there are lessons to be learned as you go through that experience. But when I was working with families and police departments a long time ago, trying to find people alive or dead, and some were cold case files, and quite often I was working with a team, would it have been to our advantage to call Kathy, the hippie mom, and say, where is this body? Where is this child? Where is this person? Would you have been able to access their records and say, okay, sadly, you will find them da 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 da, or this is not your find, which in our community is very important because there's usually karma between, let's say, a victim or a missing person and the psychic that's working on them. Now, John Catchings, I think he was open to anybody. He was probably one of the world's top 5 at the time locators. And why he worked with a team, I don't know, but he did. And I'd known him since he was a kid. So anyway, another story. But could we call Kathy and say, Kathy, we're missing this person. This is their name. Can you find anything in the Akashic Records? Can we, or is it someone else who is supposed to connect with them? Could we do that?
So I actually hadn't really thought about that before, but I am, and I feel like this is across the board, like I have to have permission to open someone's Akashic Records. So like you would have to give me permission to open your Akashic Records. So I wouldn't necessarily be able to open the Akashic Records of that person that was missing. But I could open your Akashic Records and say, what information can you give me that would help Elaine find this person, or what, and so I might get, sometimes I get words, sometimes I'll get an image. So the information comes in different ways to me and I just try to report it. So I might say to you, oh, I'm seeing a dam next to a park. There's a lot of green trees or something. And then that might trigger something in you with your gifts and your abilities to say, oh, that makes sense. I understand that now. Because it's relevant to you. So yeah, I hadn't really thought about that before, but
that's a door that's coming in the back door, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, because when I've worked with missing people, I don't like the word victims. I understand what you just explained with the permission thing,
mm-hmm.
but somehow when I was working with people like that, and parents especially, loved ones in general, but parents of children, I would tell them, this may not be my find, and explain that right up front, and then say, I have to have your permission as the parents of this person, I don't care how old they were, to help in their behalf.
Mm-hmm.
If I got a click from the other side and I could hear that person say, find me, then I would know I had permission, and I would know they were no longer living, which is so hard to tell a loved one.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I would find a gentle way to do it depending on that person's personality. Some of them are, tell me the truth. Let's just cut to the chase. Are they dead or alive? And going on how I had reached. So I can't help but think the Akashic Records could be helpful with cold cases. Truly. Because you could ask the person on the other side. Where are you? Give me permission to help your loved ones. Could you not do that?
Um, yeah, I think if if it was a child, I guess, that was missing, because generally we don't open the Akashic records of children, just because, if it's just, a regular kid, with hanging out with his parents and stuff, and his parents are like, why is he acting this way? I could open the Akashic records of the parents and say, what things could you give me to help me deal with my child? Right? When he has
Yeah,
behavior.
that's good.
Um,
Yeah.
but someone that's missing, I guess, the parents, we could get the permission to open the Akashic records of the parent, or even possibly the family, because it's more than just like my dog, your cats have an Akashic records that we could open and ask questions. And your house has an Akashic records, and businesses have an Akashic records. So there's more. Everything in the universe has kind of that energetic signature of a record of its history, right? So it's possible to open like the Akashic records of the family of the missing child and pull information that way. But yeah, that's kind of uncharted territory for me. I hadn't really thought about that, although it's
I just
interesting.
got another question when you said family. And this is because I've worked with a couple of missing people where family was involved. Uncle so and so, older brother, younger, whatever. Which is, I think, is kind of coming through the back door. One of the cases many years ago, and I bring this up as quickly as I can because this is your time, but it relates to Akashic Records, I think. That's the question. 7-year-old boy in Arkansas. I had read for his mother and his aunt several times over the years. Never met them face to face, always by phone. Knew about the child. And then all of a sudden, I'm seeing this on television. It was a big deal. The kid had disappeared right out from under their parents' nose. One moment he was in the kitchen, and the next moment he was gone. And they lived on 10 acres plus. They knew this child would not just get up and walk out and disappear. But within 10 minutes, that was what had happened. So I did not call them. But within 24 hours, the aunt called me and she said, Elaine, can you and your group, da-da-da-da-da. I said, I'll see what I can do. So I called the circle that Hipple had put together and I said, we've got a missing kid. And yes, of course, your identity is protected, da-da-da-da-da. And I said, call me or we didn't have computers then. I know that was a long time ago. I know. So it was all done by phone. And I got repeated things. I got comments like within a mile, within a half a mile, a description of trucks, which was valid because this is 10 acres. It was horse country. Absolutely. So, of course, the cops, the sheriff's department, volunteers were crawling all over barns, and they had like 5 barns on their property. And I mean, if it was a tub, they were tearing it apart. Come to find out, long story short, an aunt, the boy had choked and had died in the kitchen, but but the aunt was there. And they had made a big deal about the aunt taking care of the boy. She panicked and she put the body in an old truck. She literally was moving the body ahead and returning the body to the place that people had already looked until finally a new volunteer on his bicycle was coming down the road. And he saw her carrying the bundle.
Oh, wow.
Now, talk about a find. That was that young man's find, to find that child being moved. If he hadn't come in as a volunteer, she could have eventually kept moving him out of the territory and buried him. But she did it because she panicked. Now, that's literally moving the body under the noses of literally hundreds of volunteers. But she knew the property and she knew where they were going to look next. And of course, it's typical for sweeps like that to repeat more than one time because of situations like that. And now we have search groups that are highly trained and dogs that are highly trained to do that. But could the Akashic record have said, yeah, you need to look at Aunt Doris? See what
I
she's
think
doing.
I think
Make her
that's
go
definitely
sit
a
down.
question that you could ask, like say as the mother opening the mother's Akashic records and asking, is there anyone in the family that I need to be aware of? Or is there anything I need to be aware of that might help this case be solved and find my child and like that. So I think that's definitely something that you could ask. Um, and depending on the Akashic Records reader and what their other skills are, something may come up in the reading for like this happens to me sometimes, where I just try to report what I see. As I'm reporting it, I sometimes will get hits on certain things that I feel like I need to share. And so after I report to them what I see, then I will say, this is Kathy getting this information. It's not coming from your Akashic Records, but this is what I'm feeling. And then I will share that with them.
How do you know
So
the difference? How do you know the Akashic records are not, or your guides are not bringing you something from the Akashic records after the fact?
that's true. I mean, yeah, that's definitely true. That definitely could be happening, but I don't want the person that I'm reading for to misunderstand that, oh, my Akashic records said this directly to me. Because really, when I'm conveying the information to them, it's coming directly from their Akashic records to them. And then you're right, it could be my guides saying, hey, look at this. I think this means this, or here's the interpretation that I'm getting. So I do like to share that when I get it, especially if I'm getting the chill bumps and, then I'm being told, yes, this is something you need to share. And I'll share that with them. I'll say, here's my sign that I get when it's something I need to share. I feel like I'm supposed to share this information from you. And as I say those words out loud, it just rolls over me like a wave. And I'm like, okay, yes, this is definitely
Validation.
something,
Yeah.
definitely something I need to share. So, yeah, so it's possible that that could be coming through for me, but I like to separate the two so that people don't get confused and think, oh, but my Akashic record said this. Well, actually, that was my interpretation of what I was feeling. So,
This is interesting because when you say look through the family's file rather than a person's file, it's almost like the DNA that's being done today by profilers, what I consider to be DNA profilers. And that's how cold cases have been found now that we have a way of tracing DNA and family interaction. And they'll find one clue over here and then they connect it with something else, but it's really the family. That not long ago a 30-year-old case was solved, and it was one of triplets that had done the murder, but until
oh,
recently
wow.
they didn't have the
Mm,
science to
yeah.
help. But this DNA profiler, kind of on a whim, she asked her local, it was up in Washington somewhere, what was an old case that everybody just had to, it just went from detective to detective to detective. I mean, and they were determined to solve it, and so they kept it on somebody's desk, the picture on the wall, on the shelf,
Mm,
or something.
yeah.
And that's how they did it. They found it through this familiar, I said
Mm,
that wrong, family interconnection. So there is a way to go into the Akashic records using the same methodology, is what you're saying. Look at the family, not the victim, but you're going to find the assaulter through the family. Maybe, or friends of the
yeah,
family
I
or
haven't
something
tried
like
it.
that.
I've not tried that before.
I've got some old cases in my stash. We can play with that.
Yeah,
No,
I
really.
mean, that might be interesting. Oh, I'm getting chills right
Yeah.
now. So, okay, yeah, I'm definitely open to that. I feel like anything that helps me learn and grow, and that could help other people, right? But it's interesting you mentioned Dolores Cannon because what I wanted to say was I encourage you. So Dolores has, I don't even know how many books, but she has written books about her past life regressions that she's done. And, it's a wide range of topics. But the interesting thing that I have learned by listening to her books, and I just get them on audio and just play them while I'm doing other things or while I'm driving or anything like that. But I just find it fascinating. And so our family, like your family, before your souls come back, to earth for this incarnation or whatever incarnation it is, like everyone decides, or your souls decide, not everyone, but your souls decide, okay, I'm going to play the villain this time. And, I'm going to be this person and you're going to be the victim this time. And last time you were the villain and I was the victim. And so it's like everyone kind of, it's all about soul lessons. And so I think that plays a big part of the family. And I hadn't really thought about that for the Akashic Records generally. The Akashic Records, I've used them to get people information about living people, I'll say, get them information about their life and what they're doing. So it's interesting. And I'd be willing to definitely explore that with you, and let's see what we get. And we could do a follow-up episode or something about that and see what we get.
I would love that. I didn't realize for many, many years, I was a young girl, a kid, and I can't remember how old I was, but I think it was we were back from Italy. We were a military family and waiting. We were home for 8 months and then we went to Germany. I think it was either right before we went to Italy or when we were home in between. That's the age time. And my mother lost a baby, but I never saw her belly get big. I don't remember them telling me she was pregnant, but all of a sudden they had to go to a funeral. And I stayed home with an older cousin, and we went for a horseback ride, and I didn't go to the funeral, obviously. I didn't know for years that my mother had been pregnant and she had lost a sister. I was an adult before I knew that.
Right.
So, and my stepdad was Italian. It was his baby. I'm sure she would have been a beautiful, dark-haired. He had green eyes, the only one of 16 kids that had green eyes, and he was the youngest one. So maybe she would have had green eyes. I don't know. I don't know how much of the Irish English she would have gotten, but the darker skin and hair is usually predominant. So all of a sudden, I knew I had almost had a half sister. And I would like to know more about that. So that could be, for me, that could be a topic we could go snoop around in.
Mm-hmm.
And have a follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
I have lots of follow-up stuff. I'm sure every client of yours does too. I'm going to write this. Public, know that Kathy and I are going to do a follow-up. We'll pick the subject later, but that's one. Yeah. I'm going to say sister, ? What else? And we're not going to try to make a time today, but Kathy and I will get together. We'll do that. We'll record her findings, and then that will come back on as unedited as possible, because I don't believe in hiding and filtering my stuff. So it's out there. It needs to be. So I've got a star beside it. I'll keep you up on that. Also, let me remind you and the public that this is going into the editing queue with Adam and his team. I don't know when they'll do it. We're going to have 2 hours here. We're not anywhere near finished, but I just want to remind people that it's not going to happen in the next couple of weeks. We're probably going to launch this in October. I don't know if we can do it by September or not. My silly attempt was going to be August. Well, that's not going to happen. but and I don't know if we can get it launched by September or not, but at the latest, October, around the full moon. And we'll be announcing it on the website. So you'll show up. Somewhere October, November in the edited queue. So it will be after that, public. Just know that. I want you to look forward to it, but we will announce that in plenty of time for you to know. Okay, so that's Kathy and I doing a follow-up session, which of course the public can see how you work that way too, which will
Yes,
be exciting about
absolutely.
that. Okay,
So I actually wanted to tell you, we don't have to do it right now, but before, if you want to do this before we stop, I opened the Akashic Records of your podcast audience this morning to see if I could get a message through for the audience. And so I did get a message. So I wrote it down and I can read that to you later whenever you feel ready.
I'm ready. If you're ready now,
Okay.
go for it. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Let me put my glasses on here.
Thank you for doing that. It's so sweet of you.
Oh, I love it. It's fun. It's always fun to see what comes through. Okay. So I asked, what is important for me to share with the audience of Elaine's podcast? So I got 2 words. Sometimes I will get just, word of the day. So I got 2 words today. The first word is wisdom. The second word is sharing. And they said, everyone is on their own journey. Everyone has different ways that they connect and receive divine guidance. There is not one right or wrong way. To help expand our consciousness beyond what we receive, it is important to be around others that are like-minded. By sharing your wisdom and guidance with others and receiving wisdom and guidance from others, we all can expand our collective consciousness. Understand that this does not mean to accept everything we hear from others. You are encouraged to take what resonates and only that. However, you must not condemn others if you don't resonate with their truth, for it is a truth to them and helps to advance them along their path. Everyone has something to contribute and everyone is important. You are all so loved. Continue to stay your course and find your tribe, whether online, through a podcast, or in person. And the image I was seeing was little puzzle pieces, like everyone was like a little puzzle piece, and we were all important to fit in together to make the big picture of the big puzzle. So that I thought that was kind of a cool message, because I feel like this podcast that you're starting is building a tribe of people. In the very beginning, when I, was basically alone because I couldn't, if I would have told my family and my friends what I was doing, they just would have thought I was crazy. And so I started listening to podcasts. And that was really a way for me to get information, like take what resonated with me and, let it sink in and just kind of develop myself through listening to the wisdom of others. And so that's why I think this is so important, what you're doing. And before I forget, I just want to say one thing that you told me on that very first phone call that we had together. You said, you will think at some point along your journey, and multiple times probably, that you are going crazy. You will think, I am going crazy. And you said, I'm here to tell you, you are not going crazy. And if you feel that way, call me. But just know that you are not going crazy. This is all just part of the journey. So I always think of that whenever things just seem really crazy. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, oh, okay. I remember Elaine's words to me. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was interesting and I bring this up generally, and I'm not going to get into your personal life, but you actually got serious about doing this. And I was a little bit concerned that you were using it as a distraction, but I certainly realized within 2 or 3 conversations with you, that it was because of the stress that you were under at that time, that it was the perfect time for you to say, okay, I can do this. Stress, challenges often open doors to make us more sensitive. When we're sensitive enough to cry about a situation, to worry about family, friends, to put energy into something else beside ourselves, but we feel the challenge. We cry, we get angry, we get scared. Meanwhile, we've got two doors that are opening. We're helping them by being present and sometimes a caretaker, but at the same time, we are opening, not closing. Some people look at that as, I've got to close that door. I've got to not cry. I've got to not be angry, but they are. And that makes them even more sensitive and vulnerable to spirit. Spirit opens or supports the doors and comes in to support you. And that's what I saw you going through. And you just shifted, took a tarot class. And I said, okay, if this is going to help her get through this, then I'm just going to inundate her and make sure she gets more than she can handle. So she can deal with this. That will help her deal with that. And I watched you go through that without actually telling you any of that at the time. And occasionally would back off. But I was pretty hard on that class you were with, because almost everybody in that class was going through some pretty dramatic things, even though they might not have shared it with all of you at the same time. And one of the things that I've noticed about the classes that come together is that you are puzzle pieces to each other's lives. And I've had like 3 people that over the last week say, I'm still keeping up with so-and-so. We traveled together. We went to such and such. We drove to Vegas together. We had a girls' weekend at, or family outings together. And that makes me feel so good that people are bonded. And I tell everybody, every class, you will find yourself bonding or rebonding with people in this class. Not all of you, but some of you will. And those are lifetime relationships, but they're also renewals of relationship. And that's what's important. So folks, when you hear this, if you feel like you're going crazy, like Kathy said, you're not. You're just going through changes. Just changes. Thank you for sharing all of that. We're not done yet. We have time.
Well, one thing my guides related to this before we move on, that my guides have said to me before was, you have free will. Like, this is what's being presented to you right now. So you can choose to say yes and do it now, or it's okay, we'll bring it back around again. It's just going to keep coming back around again and again until you decide to say yes. And the first couple of times I was like, no, I'm not ready. And then after a while I was like, oh shoot, this is getting harder each time. I better just say yes.
And sometimes the classes get more expensive, so let's just get these things over with. Or the books get more expensive, Speaking of books, you mentioned Dolores, and I'm going to have a library. I'm going to have a list. And I'm asking everybody that I'm having conversation with to send me a list of books nowadays, DVDs, YouTube connections, whatever's out there that's been important to you and that has helped you, and that you maybe look at them as a mentor. Like perhaps you look at Dolores as a mentor, even though maybe you've met her and maybe you haven't. I want to list those under your name. And what's going to be interesting is if the same books keep coming up over and over and over again. And our authors, like you said, she's written a variety of books. We'll list them. I'll tell people where they can find them. Amazon, wherever you found them. But like I told you folks, find the oldest. Find the oldest. And if you can read them in order as they were written, I have found that a very subtle way of realizing how the author grew. And you can, if that author says something in book number 3 that they said in book number 1 and they refer to it, they may explain that they have evolved to understand which helps us as we evolve. And I encourage people about every 10 years to reread a book that they read 10 years ago. And see how those words resonate, like the Course of Miracles. Oh my God, That's a
Yeah, because
lifetime study.
you're at a different place in your life when you reread it again, and you're going to pick up on things that you weren't ready to hear before, right? That
Right.
wouldn't have resonated with you. So that's a fabulous idea. And even which is why I like to record. I like to do my Akashic Records readings on Zoom because I like to record it for people because I like them to be able to be present, fully present, not feel like they have to take notes because I'm a note taker. So if I don't feel like I can record it, I am taking notes and I'm missing everything that's being said really because I'm trying to write everything down. So
Glad
that's why I
writing
like to
notes.
record it. I like to
Yeah.
record it for them. And I usually will tell them, okay, wait for a little while before you listen to it again, because you will hear something that you missed the first time when you listen to it again. Or you'll hear something and say, oh, wow, I don't remember that was said, but look, that actually happened, or I know why that was said now, or I know what the red balloon tied to the bicycle meant because of something that happened. Because for me, what I find is after the initial Akashic record reading and we're done, the information continues to flow in. It's just, things will start happening. It will be kind of like a catalyst for some people. Like I'll get some people that will call me and go, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what's happening. New clients are just coming into my business. I don't even know where they're coming from, or, things like that. And and I just sit back and smile and say, well, you opened the door and allowed those things to come through by, wanting to get messages from your Akashic records. And so, yeah.
I am just sitting here with such pride. I didn't do any of this for you, but I was a part of that beginning, and I'm just so happy for you that you have found a journey that feeds your soul, and you are of an age that you have many, many, many years to do this with the public and any offshoots of tools that you're going to learn along the way. You're young enough to contribute so much to so many people's lives, and yet you start at a time where you're already a grandmother. And so
Yes.
you have this wonderful wisdom that you can also share with people as you help them walk their journey. You're at a perfect age to start this new career, a new career for yourself. Which reminds me, there was something in she gave me a short bio. I love this, and we'll put this on the in your section. Is
Okay.
a spiritual mentor guiding individuals on their journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Thank you for using that word. Empowerment is one of those words that talks about focus and trust and so many through modalities such as Akashic record readers. And by the way, we haven't even talked about your energy healing, meditation, past life regression, which we've touched on. Ho'oponopono, love that, love it. And others, we'll talk about the others. She empowers individuals to unlock their inner potential. That is such an important statement. Unlock their inner potential. And people have to see their own potential before they can even sign up for a class or I believe. She empowers individuals to unlock their inner potential connected with their higher selves. That's a whole nother discussion. Manifest their desires, and create lasting transformation in their lives. Lasting transformation is important because we don't ever go back. We can put a stopgap. We can say, okay, I don't have time to read those books anymore. I don't have time to go to classes. I don't have the money, da 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 da. But you never lose what you've already learned. You may put it on the back burner, but in a subconscious way, everything is in your super sub. Everything, every smell, every life, everything. I think that's another form of Akashic record. But your subconscious, we can access this lifetime whenever, and it floats to the top when we need a memory or an experience. And then our consciousness is there. But we never, ever, ever lose what we've already heard. And I think people, as you become a teacher and a teacher and a teacher, please remind people of that. You never lose anything that you hear, ever, ever, ever. After years of working full time, and I love this, for nonprofit organizations and quietly studying different energetic and healing modalities, she recently started her own business. TheHippieMom.com, guiding others through Akashic Records readings, guided meditation, and energy work. So you have 3 prongs currently to this new career of yours. What kind of energy work are you doing? I hope
So,
really.
so
That's
it's
future.
I started off years and years and years ago. I was interested in Reiki. And so I took an online class because that was at the point where I was quietly studying it. And I just wanted to find out what it was about. And so I took an online class. I got attuned. Um, and so I definitely felt my hand, you hear people say, oh, my hands turn on. I feel my hands activate. That definitely happened for me, but I never connected with the Reiki symbols that you had to use. And so I just kind of said, well, I guess this is not for me because I don't connect with the symbols. But I continued to do energy work because I continued to, like, before, and you'll hear Dolores, if you listen to Dolores Cannon stuff, you'll hear her say this, which was confirmation for me because I've been doing it for years. Before I go on a trip or before I get in my car, I surround it with white light, right?
Oh,
As
yeah.
protection.
Oh, yeah.
I surround myself. I surround anyone else in the car. I'll do that for my kids. They're all, young adults now. And I'll do that for them also. If I know they're on a trip or they're going somewhere in a car, just surround them in white light of protection. And I can't tell you how many times I have come within inches of getting in an accident that I feel that has been my protection. So I always try to do that. And so I continued to kind of do that. And then later on, I heard, oh, well, it's just energy work. You don't have to connect with the Reiki symbols. You can still do the energy work. I guess you just can't call it Reiki because you're not using the symbols. So I just kind of transitioned into, okay, energy work. And then I started hearing about energy healing and how you can use that to help people. Now, I kind of shy away from the word healer because we can only heal ourselves. Nobody else can heal us. They can provide the kind of like container, the energetic container for us to be able to accept healing and to allow that healing ourselves. Which is why sometimes you hear of people that, like say they might have, I don't know, cancer or something, and then they go to a healer and they get healed from it. But years later, it comes back. Because there's something, and it's so interesting in just this whole journey that I've had with the energy healing, and then also with studying with Dolores. I have never met Dolores, by the way. She has since passed away, but I've taken her classes, and so she is the instructor of the I've done level 1, and so she's the instructor of level 1. So it was interesting to learn from her, but it's you'll hear especially Dolores talk about there's some lesson, some kind of life lesson or something, like you said, karma before, that needs to be healed in the person by the person in order to fully release what it is that's causing this to come up in their body again. You just hear some interesting stories of, like, say someone who has breast cancer in their family, it runs in their family. So this young child grows up knowing that her mom and her aunts have all died of breast cancer. So she grows up to think, I'm going to get breast cancer. And then she does. She has that opportunity after she's healed the first time to kind of clear that belief from her system, because we all grow up with, we get all kinds of limiting beliefs and things that are passed down unintentionally, from our parents or even ancestrally, things that we might not even realize. I have a lot of those around because I have Irish heritage. A lot of that is around famine and poverty and, lack of abundance that I came in with, that I'm working on clearing right now. But we have an opportunity to clear those beliefs, because our body really is amazing, and our body's trying to tell us, hey, something's going on. Look at this. Your right elbow hurts. Take a look at it. Be curious. Ask, why is my right elbow hurting? See what comes up about it, and see what kind of things you might need to clear, and just be really curious about it, because the body is amazing at telling us things. Dolores Cannon's daughter, Julia, has a book. I think it's called Soul Speak. And it is just basically a list of different areas in the body and what they have found correlate with, as far as different disorders, or if this is ancestral, or why it's there's so many different modalities out there. And I'm just amazed whenever I hear about a new one. But the one I've been studying recently is meridian energetics. And so it's interesting to kind of open up those meridians in our body to release some of that we've been holding on to. And so my logical mind has a really hard time with that, because I'm like, this is not logical. This does not make sense. And so what I've really been encouraged by my instructor to do is to incorporate it into what I'm already good at. So now I've kind of created this package with my Akashic Records reading, where we do the reading and then we go through a healing, and I use a guided meditation, and I take them up and we do some healing, and to release some of those things. And it's really about empowering them to feel what it is in their body. Where are they feeling this? Why are they feeling this? And what does it mean? How can they release it? And do they want to release it? Because some people don't, it's like a security blanket. You don't want to release it, because who am I going to be without this pain? I don't want the pain, but who would I be without this pain? Because this pain has just been, with me my entire life, and it just really defines me. And I see that so much. So I totally understand, how that is. So I've tried to really, instead of just doing a reading, because I started off by just doing readings, but then I found that real need for people to heal from things that either come up in the reading or things that they're holding on to. And so I've incorporated into like one session now, where you get the reading, and then I transition you into a guided meditation. We go in, we do some healing, and come back. And it's been amazing. I've just been really, every time I do it, I'm just amazed at the results. And so I see how the energy work that I'm learning, I'm incorporating it into the Akashic Records reading. And so that's how I kind of see it expanding for me.
I was going to ask you what next. I think
Oh gosh.
that you looked at the Akashic Records. See, I'm having to get out of the idea about the Akashic Records that once it's in the record, you can't change it.
Oh, absolutely, you can. Yeah.
Yeah. Because for me, if you go in and look at the Akashic Records, honey, that's it. So that's it is a past life Akashic record reader, because that's already happened, if you believe in that kind of timeline. But for the living Akashic record, I'm having a hard time getting around. You can't change this. When I know there's free will, but the outcome is still the same. You still break the leg. Now, if you're supposed to have a gangrene infection, and that's written in concrete, then why doesn't the Akashic record tell us? Yes, you're not only going to break the leg, but you don't have a choice about how you do it. This is one thing that you don't have a choice in. So why doesn't the Akashic record say that, so we can begin the acceptance energy?
So I have not gotten messages like that in the Akashic Records. However, during a QHHT session where we go into a past life regression, and then after you get all the details from the past life, then you move into asking the subconscious, why did you show this person this? And then you can ask other questions, right? So you might ask, okay, I've been shown that I'm going to break my leg. Why? Like, or I broke my leg. Is this something that you can heal for me? Right? Because our bodies are amazing. Our bodies
Yeah.
can, heal ourselves. Um, and then you might get the message from your subconscious, like, no, like I can't, or usually they say we can't help with that. There's still a lesson that she needs to learn around the broken leg or around something.
Right.
And then like it's really been amazing, different like things that have come up during a QHHT session, that where their subconscious has said, oh, they can heal this, but they have to want to. Like that's
Well,
work
they have
that
the
they need
experience.
to do. They need to do this work. There's something else. And usually what I have found, the subconscious will not say, oh, these are the steps that you need to do, because again, it's a process. Like you said, you have to have the experience. You have to go through it. You have to learn the lessons. You have to, do all of that. So it's fascinating.
I was going to say something and now I can't. So evidently spirit doesn't think I need to say it. Like,
Well, I was
shut up,
going to say
Elaine.
one thing,
Okay.
one thing that you said about me starting my own business. So when I transitioned from several years ago working for nonprofits into working for someone else using the skills that I had from working for nonprofits, which was marketing, graphic design, website, social media, kind of all that stuff. Then I transitioned to working to an Akashic Records reader. So I was kind of like the behind the scenes person running the website, and, helping with all of the customers and just kind of basically helping, with the business and learning along, because I was immersed in it all day. And so I learned a lot. And you had mentioned before about, mentors. I would definitely say you are you are my number one mentor, even though you may not accept that title, but really you are. But and then my job that I had before starting my own business, working for Emily Harrison, and learning just from her, how she's running the business, how, just being immersed in spiritual things all day long was amazing for me. And then my guides, were saying to me, okay, you've been learning and learning and learning and learning. It's time for you to start doing. And I was like, no, I think I'm really comfortable here behind the scenes. I'm not comfortable on camera. I don't, and they were telling me you're going to speak and you're going to be on stage.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm not.
Oh,
That is
yes,
not
you are.
that is not my comfort zone. That is not who I am. I'm the quiet little mouse in the corner that's just watching everyone and just absorbing all the information. But so that it just became very clear to me that if I did not take this step to start my own business and do this, that my life was going to become very, very difficult. And so I took the leap, and it's just been amazing how things have just, uh, I'm just allowing them to flow into me, and I'm trying not to say, oh, no, I don't want to speak. I don't want to be on camera. What? I'm going to be on Elaine's podcast. No. So I just kind of have to let those things flow into me. And it's just been amazing how it's happened. So I'm really excited about it. I'm also working on, so I've been doing some guided meditations. I know this is coming out after the fact, but I'm putting together a Lionsgate workshop on August 8th. And I see that to be a yearly thing. So that will be something that will come around again. So check out my website if you're coming on after August the 8th. And also, I felt it, and I've been a little, hesitant about it because I don't consider myself to be a teacher, even though I know that's not true. I know I have been teaching
Yeah.
before. So I'll be teaching others how to read their Akashic Records, how to open their Akashic Records just for themselves right now, and then, expanding it into people that want to learn how to do it for others. Because that's something I'm really passionate about. beginning, I just felt so alone and like, am I doing this right? How do I know it's not just my voice? How do I know? And so the more questions you ask, the more little, I guess, little signs and synchronicities you get from the universe that says, okay, this is your path. This is what you're supposed to be doing. You're doing it absolutely correct. Or you might hear something somewhere else, like on a podcast, or like, how do I know this is not just my voice? And then
Right.
you hear me say on this podcast, oh, I noticed because it was using words that I don't necessarily use. Right. Or sometimes depending on, because in your Akashic Records, you get a host of masters, teachers, and loved ones. So it could be a teacher from another like century or something that uses different language, like Old English or,
Right.
something like that. And I forget what it was the other day. I got a message and it was um, like the word hence, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, hence, like, I've never used that word.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never used that word before. I'm like, okay, I get it. It's it's someone else. And we get people coming in to the Akashic Records depending on what we need, right? So if I'm asking a question like of my records, like before your podcast, I'm like, oh gosh, okay, what do I need to know? What do I need to communicate to everyone about this? Then I might get a certain master or teacher coming in and giving me information. And whereas if I'm asking about, okay, should I go to this beach or this beach on vacation, then I might get a different one coming in and, helping me decide about things like that. So we get those experts that come in when we need them. So
I want to go back to the couple of things that you said. You worked for Emily
Harrison. Mm-hmm.
Harrison. Okay. You worked with and for her and learned the business. A lot of the public thinks that many of us sit around and meditate all day. They forget that we're human, we have bills to pay. And a lot of them don't realize this is a business. We pay taxes based on our income from this, whether it's teaching, readings, whatever. This sort of thing, I'm not paying you. You're not paying me to do this. This is a free, let's involve the public, let's teach the public. My purpose of this is to tell the public that the people I'm having conversations with are standing on other people's shoulders that came before us. That's a big deal for me in this podcast. And that's why I'm breaking them up into several categories, like newbies. You're a newbie right now. The established, the ancients that have been doing it forever, and then the legends, both living and deceased. And those are the people that are probably in their 70s and 80s, but they could also be in their 20s because they've been doing this since they were 4 and could talk, whatever.
Right.
Whatever. Well, there are those geniuses out there. So you're a newbie. Eventually you will move over to established, and it probably won't be too long from now. So, and that could be you're established in 3 years based on education and experience and the fact that you're every single day doing this. So public, we are in business. And the one thing that comes up for me, I don't know about others, I can't speak for other professionals, but well, if this was your gift, then why can't you gift us a free reading? Well, of course I can. And we all have. But so many people just assume that because we're the weird ones, we're supposed to sit on the porch and just give our talents away. We do, but a lot of people do not realize that. But we have a business. IRS comes knocking on the door. We got to pay it. We've got rent to pay, house payments to pay, kids to put through school. We pick up other people's bills when they can't. So, and I did that for my mom for years when she was not doing okay. I'd see the electric bill or the gas bill or something. I put money in her bank account and she didn't really realize it sometimes. And that was the whole purpose. Because I'd say, Mom, you need some money. No, 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 I'm fine about it. But she'd forgotten to pay something that was about to be cut off. So I began to keep a very close eye on it. We take care of people. And we bleed, we laugh, we find joy, we find different careers to have at a certain age. I want people to know that. And you chose to work with a woman that was already established, using your common sense and lack of ego to know that you could learn from her, both the topic as well as how to make it a business, and yet what I would consider an open-hearted business, but still a business. And that's the human that you are today. That's your logic. You brought that up several times today. So you're finding that balance in your logical world as well as your metaphysical world. But you also worked for charitable organizations, which always encourages a heartfelt thing coming through, whether it's monies or endorsements or whatever. You learned over the years how to do that, and you will continue to do that. Enough of that. Secondly, she's going to be a shoulder that other people stand on in this career field. Eventually, you will be the shoulders that somebody will stand on, because you're getting ready to teach people. So they're going to look at you as a teacher and a mentor, and you're going to write your own version of books, because every generation gets better at this. There are more topics out there right now than some of them I don't even know how to pronounce, that are out there. When I started so many years ago, it was palmistry, astrology, numerology. Then neuro stuff came in my 40s. Reiki has been around in my world since I was probably in my 20s. I knew of it, didn't really get involved with it until my 30s. But now, Akashic Records, that was a hidden subject for many, many, many years. And even though people in our community use the Akashic Records, they did it very quietly. Now you're on a podcast. You're just throwing the glitter and letting it go. And I cannot thank you enough. I cannot. Let me see what else.
Well, thank you for having me on and allowing me to learn to use my voice. And, because I've realized that over the years, I've just kind of gone within myself and really kind of lost who I really truly was meant to be. And so I'm finding that person again. And I just want to say, for anyone who is kind of in that situation where they just wake up one day and go, who am I? What have I become? And just finding your way back to who you're meant to be in that journey. It's not easy, but it's so rewarding. And just finding your voice again, it's just so freeing. And I still have things that I struggle with. We talked earlier about the heritage and my heritage and the poverty consciousness and things like that. And that was a huge deal for me when I was trying to set my pricing for my business, because if I could have just given away all my services for free, I thought that would feel good to me, but I have to pay my bills. Right. And it's, and then, so that really caused me to dig into that old ancestral, like, why do I feel this way? Why don't I feel comfortable, like, setting prices, and that, which led me kind of down the rabbit hole to dig up all of that old programming and things that I carried with me that they weren't even mine, from my, heritage. And then also the realization that everything is energy. So money is an energy. Money pays our bills. So I'm providing a service, you're providing a service to people, and they are using, their money, their energy. It's an energetic exchange. I give you what I am good at, and you give me money that helps me pay my bills. And so it's really, if you look at it from that perspective of everything is energy, and realize that you are so much more invested in the outcome of what you want to receive if you're providing something that's that energetic exchange of money. So
It's interesting too, because the general public, and I say general public, does not realize we spend a lot of time and money studying with the ancients.
mhm.
And like, you did not meet Dolores Cannon, but she's gone now. So you have access to her words visually or on text. Some of that is free, like on the internet. Some is not. But if she were still alive today, you would probably try to find the money to take some of her courses or sit in on a lecture. The public does not realize what we do to get to the point where we feel confident enough to do a reading. And we have to, I don't know that we ever get back every penny we spend. Truly, I don't know that we do. Whether it's, I've got thousands of books. I have probably 15 boxes of books in storage in a what do you call it? Climate control storage, because I don't have room for them here. But I'm not letting them go. They're going to pass down to my family. And in my will, it says they will not be sold because they're collect. Some of them are old. But what I have in my office are the ones that I need the most often. And if I remember, I have a book about da 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 da. Well, those boxes are well organized. I can go find them if I need to very quickly because of the way I organize them. So, and the people we've sat down with are mentors. Some mentors are free, some are not. So, and I don't care what the age group is. They can be 12 to 20 to 100. But if they're knowledgeable and experienced, then they qualify as a mentor. If we hear them, they can be a mentor. Not every mentor is perfect for everyone.
Right.
That's just a fact. It's, do we hear them? Can we make use of what they are sharing with us? Public, we don't do this for, pardon my expression, as another friend of mine says, shits and giggles. We do it because we love it. And we'll do it for free. I give away readings all the time. And I told somebody not long ago, I said, half the time when you're talking to someone who does psychic work or healing work, you don't know whether they're channeling something to tell you, which is a freebie, or if they're talking to you about their experiences. Because I've been dealing with tarot for so long, when I talk to somebody, I see tarot cards all around them. It's like I'm doing a reading for them. And then when we stop our conversation or say goodbye, give a hug, and see you later, how much was that an exchange of a reading of sorts, whether they're family, friend, client, student, that they got because Spirit needed them to hear it and we were the tool. So that's the way I look at it. But I want the public to know that it takes a certain amount of confidence, a lot of confidence and bravery in today's world to be an outed metaphysician and to be doing the work publicly. It cannot be safe. We can tell somebody something and perhaps their partner doesn't like that and they show up on our doorstep, which has happened more than once. And maybe they've got a gun and maybe they don't. But at the least, I know some readers have been legally charged with misdirecting or, whatever. How many times do we disclose something about a partner? Partner doesn't like it. Or business partner. Oh my God. Legal issues. Yeah, we can get in trouble working with attorneys, but we do. We can get in trouble working with doctors, but we do. What you're doing takes a lot of bravery, and you're new to the business part. You're not new to the knowledge. There's a difference. So you will learn how to get around and to protect yourself, but it still takes bravery to be a reader, a producer. I know people that own companies that support what we do, and they can get into trouble. Bookstores. There was a bookstore in Arkansas that was burned to the ground. So, and they let her build that bookstore. They let her fill it. They knew what they were going to do. They let her fill it. Not long after she opened, arsonists did it, and they knew it. They were going to make an example of her. Well, they did. And she didn't have one single loan. She had paid cash. She'd saved money. She paid her lease for a year, and boom, they took everything away from her. Well, they didn't know that the community would be behind her the way they were. So, which was great. But it takes bravery to do what we do, even if we do it in a community that's full of us. You never know who's going to be targeted. And you have to be careful about what you put on your business cards. Here in Texas, it's anything that has to do with counseling. If you don't have the letters to go behind your name, you can't use certain words. We can't do laying of the hands on healing in a healing situation where a hand actually touches the body of another person without credentials of some sort. And that's okay. I'm fine with all of that, because we shouldn't be saying we can do what we're not educated to do. So for you as a new person coming into the business of, it's taken a lot of bravery. And I've known you long enough to get to watch you grow, and that confidence. Every time I would talk to you over the years, I'd hear a little bit more confidence and a little more, because you're one of these people that when you learn something, nobody can take it away from. And your guides help you use it in a way that is truthful to your ethics, which I think also is very important for the public to hear. You want to be with a practitioner who has high ethics and respects your needs, the public's needs. I didn't mean to get off on a ramble like that. I'm just
no. I think that
so happy for you.
Brings. Thank you. That brings up an important thing that I try when I'm talking with people, when I'm doing the session or whatever. I try to find out a little bit about their background first. I grew up Catholic. And so I, am very comfortable with the saints and, the angels and things like that. Some people are not. And so I saw those. So I always try to find out. And also, if I'm doing like a QHHT session, where if I say your subconscious or your higher, because some people have a negative association of their subconscious. Oh, my subconscious is constantly trying to, to get me, to where I'm not supposed to be to go and all that. So I try to really get a good idea from the person what they believe in and what words I can use. Like, if I say the word God, is that going to trigger them? Because the session shouldn't be, if it does trigger them, then maybe they need to dive in and figure out a little bit about why it's triggering them. But just to use those words to connect with them, really, and just be, so instead, if they connect more with universe, then I might say universe. But it's, to me, it's all the same. It's all the same energy. It's our creator. So,
I agree with that. I think it's the same energy with different names because of the cultures and the belief systems, but it's the same. It's the same energy. That's me. You folks believe whatever you want to believe, but that's me. And that's why I think the word universe, when I say universe, I've had several people say, you mean God? If that's what you choose, I'm fine with that. For me, there are more gods out there. Oh no, there's only one, but they're different depictions, I guess, is where I draw the line.
Whatever
works.
Connect with, whatever works for them. And that was one of my struggles you were talking about before, of being brave. And because I got a lot of I'll say flack from close family members about what are you doing? You don't believe anymore. And no, actually my beliefs have totally expanded into so much bigger and larger than I ever thought, like, right? Where it's not just about Earth and us on Earth, it's just, expanded into the universe and our place in the universe. And
We're just
so,
a dot in the sky. Just a dot in the sky. That's one of the things early on. I've been doing readings for the public since I was 17. And that was the mother of a friend of mine. That mother called my mother, got permission. Mother said, well, she can't take any money. Well, of course not. But I was 17 years old. But the lady did bring a dish of some sort. I don't remember, a pie or cake or something for my mother. Not for me, for my mother. And the agreement was that my friend or her, they were not supposed to discuss what this was, to be kept quietly. Well, when you're in high school, things get around. I was weird. I was one of the weird ones anyway, and so was my friend. So, we were a small group of weirdos. But one of the main questions that I have gotten over the years was somebody leaning across the table at a psychic fair saying, do you believe in God? Yes, I do. Maybe not the way you do, but yes. Organized religion has been a real challenge for me, even though my grandfather was a minister in his own way. He was. But that is the number one question I get the most is, do you believe in God? Or do you believe in Jesus? That was asked of a fellow practitioner at a very small fair. And bless her heart, God love her. And this was asked by a man, one of 4 that had come to a small psychic fair. And when we saw him walk in the door, we knew they were either Latter-day Saints, one or the other. Crisp jeans. I mean, really well-kept gentlemen. They weren't being bullish, gentlemen. They came late in the day, so Latrell didn't charge them for entry. And she just said, come on in and enjoy. So they kind of scattered out. Well, Raven was sitting right next to me, and a man sat down with her, and they were chit-chatting for a little bit. And then he finally leaned in and he said, well, do you believe in Jesus? And she drew back and she took a deep breath and she said, she knew it was coming. She said, no, I don't. And he said, why not? And she grinned real big and she said, because I'm Jewish. And that's what he did. He looked at her really straight-faced for a few minutes, and then he just broke out in this laugh. Now, when it came to Bible, Torah stuff, she could recite with the best of them. And it was fun for me to sit there for about 5 minutes and hear them go back and forth with phrases. I mean, it was just boom, boom, boom. And they ended up hugging each other. Well, the other 3 men got the same reactions from different people. And they left shaking their heads, yes. Now, what they were agreeing with each other, I don't know. But they didn't throw any gas bombs or call the police or, anything else. But they left with a smile on their face. So as a psychic and you become a target. And you don't know what's going to hit you on occasion. But when we have exchanges like that, it always warms my heart. When I could hear them laughing and quoting stuff, I could have sat there all day and listened to that. Just the 2 of them go back and forth. And they would answer. It was like Shakespeare talking to the Bible. Boom, 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 boom. It was, I wish I had recorded it. I wish I had the sense to record it. And I just didn't. I wish I could have. So your bravery bringing up the Akashic Records, there are not many Akashic Records readers out there they may be readers, they're just not practicing. You're brave enough to get out there and say, let's look at your past. Let's look at your future, which is talking about reincarnation, which can be a very volatile topic amongst certain people or groups. So that's another reason why you're like my tarot. A lot of people say that's blasphemy of the Bible. What they don't realize is that the Bible and the 10 of Pentacles is the Kabbalah card. How Jewish can you get? Really. So they just don't know. They've not been
Right.
educated. So
Mm.
I'm glad that I cannot tell you how glad I am that you're out there doing what you're doing, and you're excited about the future. You're excited about what else you want to learn. If you could study with anybody in your field right now, who would it be? Do you think?
Oh gosh.
Let me lay it back
Um,
on the table.
I don't know. I hadn't really thought about that. I'd love to, like we
Nature
talked about,
happens.
well, I'd love what we talked about today. I'd love to kind of dive into some subjects with you and open the Akashic Records and just do some experimenting and see what comes about. Some of the things that we've talked about today. Mediumship is one thing that I have always been, and I think it's from my past as a child. We lived in a really old farmhouse in Illinois, in the middle of cornfields in Illinois. And I think I was very sensitive as a child, and I picked up on maybe some negative things, entities that were there and things like that. And so I've always been just like stayed away from anything from the other side, right?
But
Don't
you
let
were in
anyone.
the middle. Now you're in the middle of the other side.
Yeah, you're right.
Love
You're
it.
right. But
I love
I've
it.
always kind of stayed away from that. And so just recently I had an experience where I have a friend um who was also in your tarot class, and we've stayed friends, and she is sensitive to people from the other side. And I don't think she calls herself a medium, but I remember coming upon a scene of a very recent motorcycle accident driving my car. And I I remember kind of getting that feeling of, oh, I should, and I knew someone had passed. I didn't, at that point I was just like, oh, I should tell her. So if she sees them, she can help them cross. And then as I'm getting closer, because we're moving like a mile an hour, waiting for the police to get us through the intersection, um, I said to myself, I'm right here right now. Why can't I just help this man right now? And I didn't see him, but I felt his presence. I felt his confusion. Like what happened, I kind of felt that. And, so I just, said to him, it's okay. Everything's going to be fine. Just go to the light, and just kind of felt that release. So at that point, it wasn't quite as scary as what what I had made it out in my mind to be from being a child, and just being scared to death of the dark and anything like that. And then did some research later and found out that indeed, a man had hit a deer with his motorcycle, um and so maybe that's something in the future. Um, I had my younger brother, the middle brother. I have two younger brothers. The one that's closest in age to me, who's passed away. He was very sensitive to spirits, and he could see them and feel them. And he always told me stories, and I was always like, no, not for me, no,
Not
thank
going
you.
there.
And for him, it was fine. And so
Helping recently deceased pass over, so to speak. They have their own, once they pass that confusion state that you were talking about, which is seconds. Sometimes they stay. We would need to know everybody's story, but we don't know why they stay. Some people say they don't have permission to leave. Some say they ask to stay for a certain amount of time, get permission to do that. Some say they go back and forth and back and forth. I know I've dealt with spirits that have come back and forth and back and forth, and I'll look up and say, "What are you doing here? We got you, we got you over there. Why are you here?" There's such a thing called as gatekeeper. And once a gatekeeper
mhm.
escorts you, and symbolically the doors are closed, you're not coming back. You may float above and kind of keep in touch, but not without permission. But oftentimes, once you get a gatekeeper escorting you over and through whatever portal you're supposed to be. You're not coming back until you are reincarnated. That is a belief system, public. Don't have to agree with that.
Yeah.
But, and gatekeepers usually will look up and they're this line of people. And sometimes they're not always from this planet, which I always find fascinating. But they make themselves known. So what you and the class member does, I'm not going to say her name.
You know who it is, I'm sure.
Yeah. You're another form of gatekeepers. And you're, but a gatekeeper that's trained to be a gatekeeper has kind of a bossy, get in here, that kind of thing, and attitude. And other times they're very patient and very kind, and they have a list of questions they're supposed to ask. They're trained to ask by beings on the other side. But what we can help do as an everyday escort, I like to call it being an escort, and you telling this man, it's okay, just find your light and follow your light. It's the best we can do, because that little bit of seconds of that last breath and knowing you're not where you're familiar with being. So where am I, when you can still see the crowd, let's say, in his case, that's kind of scary. And why don't you hear me? Why can't you feel me? Why can't I'm touching your back? Why can't you feel me? The movie with Patrick Swayze.
Yeah.
What was it? The name
Ghost.
Ghost?
I think it's called Ghost. Yeah.
Public, if you haven't seen that, yes, it's a love story, but look beyond that. There's some real truths to what happens there, and at that time frame, and the part that, what is her name, that plays the psychic?
Whoopi Goldberg.
Whoopi, yeah, and her having a room full of energy of people. Yeah, that happens. You get up one day, like you were saying, you get hits before the fact. Yeah, walk into your office and you go, holy crap. I only have 3 people appointed today. Who are you? People just waiting, spirits just waiting their time, to come through, come do. That's where you are.
Well, that, I feel like that hasn't happened to me visually yet. I feel like maybe that incident, with me helping that man, just telling him to go to the light, was for him, but also for me to not be afraid, to really not be afraid of, that, because up until that point, I was just like, no, I don't want anything to do with this. And then I heard another teacher talking on a podcast or a YouTube or something. And she said the same thing that I was thinking, like, she didn't want to touch that. She was a remote viewer, and she didn't want to delve into mediumship at all. She didn't want to see people. She didn't want anything like that. And then she said she had this realization that if she could help someone either cross over or help a family member, if she got a message and help a family member understand something and feel better, that she was okay with that. And so that kind of changed my thinking, which I think allowed that opportunity to open up for me. Do I want to make that, a focus? I don't think I do.
It may not be a focus, but it may be a common event. Let's put it that way. Kind of like you came across that accident. Well, I believe there are no accidents. I believe that was the right place for you to be at the right time. You may not do that again for years, but you can. It's just,
and I'm not scared. I'm not scared of it. And when my brother passed, I did go to a medium, just really seeking some messages for my mom. And definitely got those confirmations from her. I didn't give her a lot of information because I was a little bit skeptical, and I was like, okay, well, this was years and years ago, before I was kind of in the business. And so I just went in kind of vaguely. She gave me some amazing confirmations of my grandmother's, which I loved. She described them perfectly. How they were. She didn't have names or anything, but she's like, well, this one likes this, and then this one, oh, this one, she must be Irish because, and I'm like, oh, yep, that's her. And so, and then finally, then my brother did come through and basically gave me messages that my mom really needed to hear at that time. So yeah.
I'm thank you. I cannot thank you enough. I know you've got other things you need to go do, and I'm thank you for spending the time with us. What do you want to leave the public with today? What do you hope for the public? What do you hope for your business?
I just want to really continue to, now that I'm doing this full time for myself, I really want to just continue to help people in any way that I can. So whether that's through going on podcasts like this and just kind of making people aware of the Akashic Records if they don't know about them, or some of the other healing modalities, or I'm also starting my Meridian Energetics instructor. Her name is Donna. She's from Amsterdam. And so her and I are kind of
Donna who, and how do they reach her?
So I'll give you the link for her website, and you can put it in the show notes or whatever. But she spells her name Danah, and I think her website might be Donna at Amsterdam.com maybe, or I'm not sure. I'll send it to you. But her and I are starting a podcast. It's called Multidimensional You, YOU. And so that's on YouTube. And so we're working together. She's bringing her, energetic healing. She's been a healer. She's one of those people that you said, like, basically was born doing what she's doing and just kind of evolved like that. So I'm always in awe of her. Because I just feel like
on YouTube, but I'm sorry, I'm interrupting because I want people to know where to reach you. You're putting this together. It's going to be on YouTube. And what is the name of it? Donna and you, or it's
called Multidimensional You, YOU. Is the name of the channel.
No, You channel.
And I'll give you the link so you can put it in the show notes. But yeah. So we've been studying together for a while, and she really has encouraged me to really integrate the energetic healing into what I'm already good at, which is obviously the Akashic Records. And so that's kind of why I expanded my session to include the healing as well. And then her and I work really well together, and so she said, "Do you want to start a podcast?" I'm like, okay, sure.
Let's do this.
and then I said, so right now we're not doing live right now. We're just recording and then putting the episodes up. But eventually it will be a live broadcast that we do. And it'll just be up. So you can follow the channel.
If I can look for it today on YouTube, I can find it. Your recorded pieces. Okay.
We have a couple.
It's up. It's up. That's the main thing.
We have a couple up there right now. And, it's kind of, in the beginning, it's kind of awkward because you're just learning how to, you've been doing this for years, really. And so
radio
you're very polished. Well, it's the same thing. It's talking in front of people. So you're very polished, but I just feel very awkward in the beginning. But it'll get better. And I mean, it's already good, but we're just kind of talking about things that people need to hear. And I'm kind of doing the same thing on that podcast that I did here, where I channeled the message for the audience. So what do I want to leave people with? I think really what kind of came through from the message today was that everyone is on their own journey, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. So, if you're just exploring and trying to figure things out, just like keep trusting what you feel, is right for you, and just know that what's right for someone else may not be right for you. And there's always something to learn. Like I think I said at the beginning, and if I didn't, when I signed up for the tarot class, I wasn't necessarily wanting to be a reader and do that professionally, but I knew, because I kept hearing the message, that if I just say yes and I get into a group of like-minded people, that things will just start opening up for me, and I'll start finding my path, which I did.
Yes.
And I'm just
Yes.
amazed at your knowledge and all the things that you know about. I would be like in my little guidebook trying to look up, okay, this card, that means this or that means that. So I'm just amazed at your lifetime of knowledge that you have, and it's so spot on. It's been so spot on for me and everything in my life. And so I am truly grateful to you for being my teacher, and I call you my spiritual mom because you really helped.
Thank you.
You really helped me, to grow, and just gave me confidence. And the most important thing you said to me was really the whole, you're not going crazy. Like, if you feel that way, no, it's not true. And that was so helpful. So thank you.
And that's so hard for people to accept because of their conditioning.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether it's a family that just didn't believe in all this or didn't honor it or whatever, or whether they're with a spouse or a group of people or even a church that says no, 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 no. And I'm not picking on churches. That's just a fact of life. I mean, that's just a fact of life. You're Catholic. And usually Catholicism is no, 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 no. But you're doing this. And my conversation with a wonderful lady this afternoon, she is a drenched, deep Catholic believer functioning. And yet she does yoga and Pilates and metaphysical stuff. And she's found a way to find a happy medium place. So when I talk to people that are deep into their religion and will not give it up, will not change, and yet they're doing charts, I'm going, okay, I want to figure out how you did that. Teach us how you did that, kind of thing. And you've done it too.
Yeah.
You've done it too.
Yeah. It's just being accepting of all people, right? There's way too much hate in the world, and there's we need to bring more love to the surface and love people unconditionally. And that doesn't mean let people walk all over you, but that means, set those healthy boundaries, but just love people for what stage they're at, in their journey, because everybody's at a different stage. And for me, that's just the exciting part, to watch, my friends and family on their journey and just discovering new things for themselves, and just, taking those steps on their journey. So that's really exciting for me. And I love what I do, and I can't see myself ever going back to working for someone else. That's not to say that I wouldn't do like little side jobs, if you needed me to help you with something, but really having my own business and really just sharing this with people is just so exciting for me. And I really feel like this is my soul's calling and what I'm supposed to be doing. So I appreciate you for giving me the platform here to use my voice, as scary as it might be, to let the world know that this is what I'm doing. And yeah. So if you resonate, if you're watching and you resonate with me, you'd like to get a reading or just explore something else, just reach out to me through my website.
KathyTheHippieMom.com. And all the information will there. We know she's got a YouTube channel. So you folks, you've got ways of finding her. She'll be back on here when I need to get her while before the world discovers her, because she's gonna be too busy doing other stuff.
I'll always have space. I'll always have space for you. So you just let me know.
You're sweet, Kathy. We're gonna wrap it up and let her go do her day to day. You have a wonderful time, and thank you so much, Kathy. Folks, please try to exchange a smile today with someone, make their day better, and there you go. Thank you so much. Thanks, folks, for being with us today. Love to Kathy. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into The Conversations with the Ancients, where we take you on a journey where you'll hear voices of metaphysicians from the past, as well as today's spirit mediums, healers, and others who show you a side of the paranormal you've never seen before. Remember to visit our website at conversationswiththeancients.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on Conversations with the Ancients.